Good morning once again. Feels like, well, not Groundhog Day, that's far too dismissive of how enjoyable this trip has been so far, even though I've basically been confined to poor little Yuki here. So if you can see towels in the background, it's because obviously I travel in style with these kinds of things. No, basically I just need to make sure that my towels are dried out by the time I get to my next destination, which today is, drumroll, that's the worst drum in the world, Fukuoka. So I'm heading down to Kyushu, which is going to be a rather long drive. Google is saying anywhere between 8.5 and 11 hours, which is quite specific. So who knows how long it's going to take, but the hostel, or the hostel, let's call it what it is, where I'm staying is open 24 hours, so it doesn't matter what time I get there, but I'm hoping to be there again for about 6 o'clock, because at least I can have a little wander around Fukuoka City, because I'm not staying there again. The journey continues tomorrow, so at some point today I will show you where we've been on the map and so forth. It's just that I want to get cracking now whilst the roads are relatively quiet. So the journey goes onwards, about 1,350 kilometers so far. I looked it up, it's around about 800 odd miles or so, and yeah, so by the end of today, I'm not sure the exact distance, but it's going to be getting close to 2,000 kilometers before long. So yeah, so it's dry today and it promises to be dry all day, so fingers crossed, because the last few days driving have been not very nice, to be honest with you. The rain has really spoilt some of the views in some cases, but it is what it is, and it's still fun to do these things. So bye bye Matsue. I would say I'll come back and explore you a bit more, but I did actually last year, but I do want to come back here. I think I need to book a holiday just to stay in the Sannin area, because I really do like it around here. It's really breathtaking. Okay. Maybe you can see that in camera. If not, that's Matsue Castle on the right. I'll throw a photo up here if you can't see it. I visited it last year. If you want to see that, you can go and follow me on Patreon, as I released all those videos there. So just to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of snacks that I have when I go travelling, this is breakfast. So this is melon pan, or meron pan should I say. It's basically just a sugary topped bread with shaped in a melon. I thought it had melon taste when I first came to Japan, but it's alright. And some onigiri. So this is umeboshi, that's pickled plum with rice, which is really delicious. I absolutely love onigiri, and I still have some leftover pickles and kelp, which is pretty delicious, along with some much needed coffee. So konbinis are just great for picking up snacks on the run. So yeah, but yeah, today's journey is saying that if I kept going I would get there for about 4 o'clock, so I reckon 6 o'clock is achievable, because I'm going to stop a few times like I am now. So but yeah, I'm just glad it's dry.
Prisoner.
video, I'll be wrong, and I'll be perfectly humanly hypocritical. I'll be blind to my own contradictions, and one day I'll reflect, rewrite, and erase my own history through experience, most likely. But what I say in this video is pretty much my steady state as of present, and I say them out of optimism, because I believe I can see beyond what has fast become a hell. I'd rather stand here and say all of this age 39, and say that I believe in what I'm about to say fully, and then in that regard, it's my truth. I'd rather be wrong and pilloried for it than sit by and be proved right as the fire gets further and further out of control. Institutions have always lied to us, bent the truth and distorted facts. If we can do it on a personal level, then it only multiplies when we come together. But we have created the means to join globally together through not just the internet as a whole, but specifically social media. I'll come right out and say it. Social media is a toxin, it's a poison, and it's corroding individuals, societies, and nations. Just as smoking doesn't kill every smoker, but we acknowledge it's not good for you, social media is having the same impact. If I was to fix my hypocrisy, I'd disable the comments on this video and gradually disconnect myself fully from social media as well. But there I am, already availing myself to my own hypocrisy. Many will see that we have built many connections through it, meaningful connections through it, as so have I. But I do firmly believe it does far more damage than good overall, and I don't believe it's doing that damage through an implicit evil, but rather like HAL 9000 out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. It is programmed with unintended flaws that there are some cases used for profit, and thus those become a form of evil in itself. And on top of that, it is driven and constantly changed by the most flawed, each and every one of us. Twitter, Facebook, etc. aren't HAL 9000 alone. In a way, I think we have all become part of it. We are the Matrix, and we will steadily destroy ourselves if we don't reckon with it. Let's just rewind a moment. The internet was the commercialization of the US Department of Defense's resilience network, originally engineered by Bolt, Beranek and Newman in the late 60s. It was christened ARPANET in 1969 and wasn't something essentially born out of a utopian ideal, despite first appearing in educational establishments, but rather as a line of defence related to communications in the Cold War. With the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and later the fall of the Soviet Union, not only was the Cold War declared over, but some commentators even mused that so was history itself. I admire the self-confidence and optimism of such a statement, but recoil at its utter idiocy. We are living in an age that proves beyond doubt that history is as partial and still very much be made and written. With the Cold War over, at least for a bit, the internet took on, I guess, peacetime duties. It was the creation of the World Wide Web by Tim Berners-Lee in 1991 that really began to propel the internet into general consciousness. By the end of the 90s, it began to achieve some form of ubiquity in the home, including my very own in 1999 with an Amiga 1200 hooked up with a 56k modem. The idea of pooling all of human knowledge into it was indeed utopian and part of Tim Berners-Lee's drive, and without a doubt everyone takes this for granted. But it wasn't just knowledge poured into it. The human soul was, and is, and all of its desires, lies, conceits, and much more. Combine this with the equally utopian idea that a revolution of free and open that was taken hold in the 1980s with the GNU movement, which underpins much of the technology that drives the web and the internet today, enterprises such as Yahoo and Google even made use of these free technologies in order to build their enterprises, and later themselves began to create amazing free tools. After all, free is good. But with no price tag, money to drive private businesses has to be created somehow. The advertising model was advocated, and with all the data we have poured into this vast network, clever people soon realised we were actually the product. We were giving away so much information about ourselves willingly and unknowingly, and sometimes even against our desire, that these corporations could sell data to businesses who would then in turn mirror it all back to us in the form of advertising. It is this huge availing of the human soul that social media has latched onto, and our own ego and vanity finds it hard to drop it, because to disengage is almost to switch off an integral part of our existence. What gives us meaning, association, and belonging, our participation in social media and our lives through it. It wasn't meant to be this way. The internet wasn't meant to have these gigantic monolithic conduits through which we communicate or engage with it, such as Google, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. It was meant to be a distributed network with multiple resilient end-to-end communications. When you send an email, yes, it will pass through many hops to get to its addressee, but in general, you can email through many means. Of course, even that can now be scanned for data collection purposes. Hello Google, hello Microsoft. But as Jaron Lanier pointed out many years ago, there has been some elevated hero worshipping going on in Silicon Valley and the wider world. In a world that gave up on God, it's created further new gods literally in human form rather than just as a reflection in the tech wizards that inhabit many places of these landscapes. Some people revere their work. These institutions are like paper magnets, but they are corporations, and like so much dystopian sci-fi lore, these corporations are not benign and already have some sense of immunity from government oversight. As Arthur C. Clarke rightly, in my view, pointed out, it will be technology, not politics, that will be the ultimate decider when it comes to freedom of information. And without free access to information, then we really begin to see the seething evil of social media, and it already is there in plain sight to see all around the world. I'm not for once suggesting that the politics of the so-called West are benign nor right either. Nothing is. But all over the world, everything is being distorted, so much so that the very concept of truth has become entirely corrupted, and efforts so far to control this seem to be akin to one firefighter with a watering can trying to put out a wildfire raging over thousands of square miles, and it's only growing. But the first casualty of war is truth, and in effect, competing visions of the world are being played out in a global proxy war right now. No matter which side you believe, all have their own truths. All truths are partial at best though. But social media allows this poison to seep through everywhere, radicalising people with all sorts of views. It's not a radicalisation of the left and right even, it's a radicalisation of the self, seeing your enemy everywhere except in our own reflection, and it's corrupting decent discourse well below the waterline of intelligent reasoned debate, sometimes plumbing the depths of schoolyard level name-calling right the way down to outright riot and killing. Humans can be predisposed to believe things that they can't necessarily prove physically. Largely economics is run on a belief in a conclusion, with the evidence of how it functions being nothing much more than deductive assertions. But people by and large come to believe in the economy and what we're told about it. Many will believe in a god or gods, but it's not for me, a blob of flesh with bones and some grey matter to decide on the existence of such an entity, or indeed entities. But many do believe in something. So it's little wonder that many will come to believe what they read and apparently hear and see. It's perhaps a good aspect of humanity, that our ability to trust. But unfortunately, this has been turned against us by fooling many to trust things that are not based on a sound basis. Once again, social media in of itself is not the evil, but rather, unintendedly, the algorithm. It's programmed with flaws, and it always has the human soul, which is flawed in itself, as I said, being poured into it. Misinformation spreads from anything from individual to wider national political motives, and individuals believing it helps achieve another's ulterior motives. First time that anybody has ever played Way Out West up here. It's possible. It's
In 300 meters, slight right. Slight right, then slight left.
It never ceases to amaze me what the Japanese will build.
Slight left.
This is batshit. This is mental. Parking there, but maybe up here is good. There's no water in them yet, but around the hive. That's beautiful.
Turn left, then your destination will be on the left.
Well, it's definitely true that we live in a world of hyperbole where everything on the internet is the best ever, the greatest thing, the most awesome, nothing will ever beat this, that kind of stuff. But I have to say, the view from up here is, yeah, it's among the best that I have seen in my life. And I've seen some fantastic views in France, in Italy, in my own home country, the UK. I've also seen some similarly awesome views in the US and also maybe not Canada, but I only went to Windsor, so don't ask. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of beautiful sights around the world, but up here, yeah, it's not perfect. There's electrical wires and there's that more modern bridge, but somehow it all comes together to make a rather unique and beautiful landscape. And I can only imagine that maybe in a month or so, once these rice paddies are filled up with water and so forth, ready for this year's rice crop, it must just look incredible. So yeah, I'm not going to say that this is the most awesome thing you'll ever see in your life, because that's just a big fat lie designed to get you to click on videos and adverts and stuff on the internet, and we're far too sensible for that here. Yeah, really, really precious. I hope that this landscape is only continue to be put to use in the way that it is for years and years to come. So yeah, this is Japan at its best. You know, it does a few things a little bit not to my liking perhaps in its towns and cities, but it still remains a beautiful country, and up here is, yeah, the best side of Japan, definitely. And that's not me doing clickbait, I don't think. I don't think it is. Anyway, must press on. Shimonoseki is still ahead of us. For all the flaws in Western politics, and there are many, 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 we do at least have some semblance of personal freedoms, although our economies that supposedly bless us with such freedom are gradually being turned against us by obscene human greed. But there is definitely something not right about the politics of some nations, and with them feeling their existence, mantras and way of life, no matter how wrong we may think of them, they consider this as an existential threat. And, unfortunately, social media can be easily used to disseminate a propaganda and a poison that can turn ourselves against ourselves. The enemy within. But it's not even necessarily all such socio, macro, political, blah-de-blah-de-blah, bad faith stuff, but how human vanity and ego is interpreted when we are sat in the silence of our own minds, observing the apparent truths of some people's lives on social media, from displays of great wealth, fantastical lifestyles, to beauty and opulence, and so forth. There has always been something to vicariously enjoy in other people's pursuits, but human frailties and vanities are literally being gouged out into the open and left like a wound to fester and decay on the psyche through social media. Witness the absolute worship of beauty, its proliferation and manufactured production on Instagram, for example, and the negative mental health it drives in those who consume it. And unlike smoking, nobody is taxing it. In fact, we're doing pretty much what the Japanese government does, for example, maintaining a state in owning tobacco industries despite it robbing people of their health, and then taxing them for that privilege, and also starting a campaign to get people to drink more alcohol, leading to goodness knows what down the line. We're standing at the sidelines watching apparent objective beauty smash in the face of our youth, which has a hand outstretched with a $50 bill for the magic face cream that those bastards are selling to us as we cower from the kicking. And as this happens, all of us, myself, yourself, everybody is sat at the sidelines doing nothing about it. We still let many so-called celebrities fuck over our youth, poison the play that exists in every human soul as it comes into being, and create a wretched, agonised creature ashamed of its own shadow because it has been conned into thinking the absurd is reality, or words still is normal and expected. And there is the monetisation of our knowledge. We come back into the free is good aspect. Instead, I believe that while social media, and to some degree the internet as a whole, has given great exposure and potential to exhibit both our knowledge and creations, gradually livelihoods are being destroyed by the value, or lack of value, in fact, placed on content. More and more often, creatives have to maintain a side gig to keep their creativity afloat, whereas maybe before they could have earned a decent living from it. And for many now who have grown up with this abundance, the value of those creations may never have been known in the first place. But we still keep on feeding this machine in the vain hope that someone will notice us, despite the fact that these corporations are the ones really winning. Observing where we use their free sat-nav software, their free photo sharing facility, their ability to publish our videos and our music, what we say in our comments, and so also that we can go into that ramen shop which is advertised through the sat-nav data, or sell us that hat to keep our ears warm in winter because of what we said on social media the day previous. The fact remains, I don't believe anyone is necessarily programming the algorithms to be evil, but as they are derived from human imagination, they too share our frailties. As Jaron Lanier also observed, content that is more likely to get a reaction is the stuff that stirs quick to rise emotions in us: anger, fear, doubt, anxiety. And through this kind of content, a reaction, and therefore data, is both created and collected, because generally it is engaged with much more than something much more mellow. For example, imagine I produce 2 videos. One is called Shocking Discovery of Why You Are Now Poorer. Might get more clicks and data than my second video, I enjoyed a nice ice cream. When in fact they could be both stating the self-same message, that I am poorer because I bought an ice cream. The problem is, when someone uses this kind of messaging in the financial and or political context for their gain, especially if they start distorting and lying to get their message through, and with so many apparent conflicting truths to start with, Well, what is truth anymore? Truth is often little more than a belief these days. Truth hasn't been mortally wounded yet, but every day I am stabbing it myself by continuing to use these platforms. I am aware of my own hypocrisy. Perhaps a little more akin to the Matrix. I really do contest that social media corporations are now the HAL 9000, but we have also become components of it by putting our lives into it. Part of our memory and existence now only seems to exist when we are part of this system, and removing ourselves from it is to shut down our memories and our connections. Part of our existence. We are the ones pleading with Dave, because even if we do take the data away, data without context is just that, meaningless data. But I think even now there is enough of us that isn't part of these systems, and that if we pulled away from it and took out this middleman that social media is, we would regenerate in time and restore ourselves. But there is never going to be any perfection to humankind that somehow we will eventually come good. That's impossible. But I come back to how the genesis of what we now call the internet was to build resilience in our communications. But it seems that these communications are too resilient because we are being battered repeatedly by its repeated messaging and find it hard to remove ourselves from it. It seems we're not even at the stage of acknowledging social media is the cancer. We're still actively encouraging the addiction. Have another drag, it'll get better. But maybe if we all realise just how much trouble these social media giants are creating, maybe it's for the greater good that we begin to act with some deliberate confidence, ignore the nagging voice in our heads telling us not to do it, not to deactivate it, and just stand up and walk away from it and engage with those true relationships we have built, but through less regressive and toxic conduits. I only speak these values with confidence because ultimately I am optimistic about the future, but only because I think I can see so much clearer than ever about how insidious, damaging and toxic social media really is to the human and human society's soul.
When you were young, did you ever love somebody like I love you now, 'cause now that you're older, I see you don't mind letting go of my hand in a crowd. You don't wanna hold tight. And when we kiss goodnight, there's a million hearts beating in my room. I wish they would go away. I say again, there's a million hearts that break too soon. Every time you go away. When you were young, did you ever fall down, graze your knee, and wanna run to someone? 'Cause now that you're older, I've been falling down. I wanna run to someone, but there's nobody around. I can't hear the sound. There's a million hearts beating in my room. I wish they would go
So what brings me to this rather nondescript place in Kyushu? Well, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have already spotted why. This jumped out to me when I was planning my route to Fukuoka, and I thought, I've got to give this a go. Yeah, so this Miyako uses hiragana to spell it, not the kanji like Miyakoshi does in Iwate, which is of course where I live. It's just been around about 1600 kilometres to the south. So there you go. Well, that was a bit of fun. I just thought I had to stop here. Actually, this isn't going out my way to get to Fukuoka. This is actually the route that I need to take there. So, a bit of luck really. But yeah, Google is saying 1 hour 40 minutes or so to get to Fukuoka from here. So that's not too bad actually. So, yeah, it's been another long day. About 12 hours on the road when I finally get to Fukuoka, but I stopped a few times, had a bit of fun here and there as you've seen, and seen some amazing sights. But yeah, in Kyushu, so far, can't really say too much about it. It's just been mostly very urban from Kitakyushu, but it might get a little bit more interesting now, so I'm going to get started driving, make the most of the light whilst it lasts. Obviously it's going to last a bit longer down here because we're much further west, so sunset is going to be a bit later here, so that's good news. And you go, Yuki. In you are. There we go. Yosh.